guest today is Nick Tulloch, the CEO of Mendell Helium. So Nick, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very good. Thank you, Mark.
Good. Well, thank you for your time. The last time we spoke on Mendell, we were talking about more about the Jasper, well, actually in that Bitcoin mining that you announced. But you did say in the last interview that you expect to turn things on at Rost fairly quickly, so fairly early September. So we are here now, and you've announced that the dewatering process has commenced at the Rost 126 well in Fort Dodge. So that's all happened, that's all going. You're pumping water at the moment, but it looks foamy, so you're seeing gas. Is it looking okay at the moment?
It's looking really good, actually.
Okay.
Really, really good. This has been a big moment for us. We've been sort of working towards getting Rost dewatered. I mean, Rost is all about getting the water off, and the gas will come. So turning that switch on, I think we put a little video up on social media. I mean, it doesn't look very impressive. I mean, so turning the switch and the pump starts. There were no sort of fireworks in the background, but there were a lot of smiles on the face of the Mendell and the M3 Helium team, because this has been the culmination of a lot of work, and it's a very, very big moment for us.
So this water then is pumped out, it goes into like a buffer tank, and then it's going to be basically drained into the salt water, that Broby disposal well. So at 50 barrels of water per hour, I mean, you're not taking off gas yet. When do you expect to perhaps start doing that?
Well, I mean, watch this space. When we started taking the water off, the casing was on a vacuum. In other words, it was sucking in. As the water began to come off, that vacuum almost immediately began to reverse. And actually, so we turned the switch on Friday. By Saturday morning, the vacuum had reversed and gas was coming out. As of last night, it was measured at about 5 MCF per day. So we're already getting a fair bit of gas coming to the surface. It's been a source of much debate in the team. How long do we dewater before we start producing? And if there was a sort of spread of ideas, we had sort of a few hours through to a few weeks. You don't really know until you start taking the water off. But what I would say is that we are right at the very top end of expectations to be seeing gas at this stage.
Okay.
And you're also right in what you say, is that the water coming to surface was very foamy, very bubbly. It's got gas in it, and that's exactly what we wanted to see.
Okay. So really, you wouldn't have expected to see that at this stage. So the fact you are is backing up the prospectivity here that you believe you have.
Yeah, I guess it's the difference between sort of hope and expectation. You hope to see it, but you try and sort of modify your own expectations. You don't disappoint yourself. Well, we've got exactly, we're like the little sort of kid at Christmas time. We've got exactly what we hoped for.
Okay.
We hope for foamy water. We hope to see gas shows, and that's exactly what we've got. So it's it's really, really good. It's good. Just what we wanted to see.
Good. Well, you said in the RNS there that the next step now is to prepare for production in what you believe will be a very significant revenue-producing well for M3 Helium. So just a couple of questions here. What has to be done to prepare for production? And have you any idea at the moment on how significant, what it means in real number terms?
Well, in terms of what has to be done, not a whole lot. So Rost was completed some months ago. Broby was completed and permitted. The two are now connected. We are now dewatering from Rost, as the announcement says. And as I mentioned a moment ago, gas is coming to surface. We have a compressor on site. And anyone who's looked at the videos put on social media will see a large container that houses a compressor. That compressor will be used to fill tube trailers. So think sort of like almost like sort of the petrol trailers you might see on the roads here in the UK. That will be used to fill tube trailers. And initially, we're still expecting to transport raw gas, meaning we will take the gas from Rost. Not going to do anything to it. It's going to come out at 5% helium, and we'll transport that raw gas to an off-taker a little over an hour's drive away. That will get us into selling helium straight away. But over the next few weeks, this is not a long process, we will have the PSA commissioned. Now, the PSA is something that we have on site that can be used to purify the helium. Our current expectation is the PSA will purify the helium to a 75% mix. So same applies. We still use the compressor. We're still filling tube trailers, but rather than taking a 5% mix, or in other words, trucking 95% of waste, we're now trucking a 75% mix. So fewer tube trailers, but a much more valuable cargo. So the answer is not much needs to be done. We're now in the hands of the geology. We'll see what happens with the gas flows. it's probably also worth saying that the pump can run faster. Rather like sort of getting a new car, you don't want to sort of take it 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. As you pull it out the forecourt, we've started the pump at the lower end of what it can do. So we can pump more water. But let's just see how we go. We don't want to sort of break the car on the first journey. Let's see how we go, and let's see if that gas continues to build. And I say, early signs over the weekend. This is the top end of what we could have hoped for.
So what's the thinking behind chucking that 5% then, Nick? What's the rationale behind that? With most of it being waste, will you get a little bit of cash from that's worth it?
Oh yeah. I mean, helium is valuable enough. We will make money trucking 5%. I mean, candidly, this is not the most efficient way to be producing helium, but I would rather truck it than vent it. So if we can produce 5% helium before the PSA is commissioned, let's truck it. We'll start making money. We'll make decent money. I mean, at a 75% truckload, this is a extremely valuable cargo, and we'll be doing very nicely. But at 5%, even with the trucking costs and the people costs, it's still going to be worthwhile. So if the off-taker will receive it, and they've indicated they will, then I think it's something we're inclined to do.
Okay. Can we speculate what a 75% purity would be worth? Or not at this stage?
Well, it will depend on the on the size of the tanker, but we're looking at fairly large tankers. Okay. I suppose the numbers we've put into the market previously is we've had illustrations on how much helium we think we can produce, and we've tended to work on the back of the PSA. So if the PSA is rated at 750 to 800 MCF a day, meaning that is the amount of volume it can process, a bit like my car analogy of not sort of driving at 60 miles an hour, we've said, well, what if we just run the PSA at 1/3 of its capacity? So that allows for a bit of downtime. It doesn't mean we've got every gauge at sort of maximum all the time. At that level, at 250 MCF per day, that would produce in excess of $100,000 of revenue per month. If we get to that. Now, at the moment, as I say, we're 5 MCF as of yesterday. So there's a little bit of a way to go, but we would expect that gas flow to increase as the water comes off. So I'm going to stand by that benchmark. We know the well can do more. The well was tested at 2,900 MCF per day, so we know that the well has got quite considerable firepower behind it. But and you made the point earlier. It's going to be better to be trucking a higher volume helium rather than a lower volume helium. Fairly self-evidently. I guess the message is let's see how we go, but we probably couldn't have had a better start than we've got at the moment.
Okay, good. So potentially 100,000 a month and at 1/3 of the capacity of the PSA there. So there's plenty of scope there to build on that. Another thing you mentioned in the RNS was that you've attracted, understandably, you say, considerable attention within the Kansas oil and gas industry. So I don't know if that was just put in as a nice little line there to get people excited, but what can you say about that?
No, it's a fact. I mean, Kansas is one of the bigger oil and gas states in the US. I think it ranks around about 11th at the moment. But nevertheless, it's quite a small community, and Kansas is got a lot of helium, but it's still better known for oil and natural gas. And if someone's producing a well that's doing 5% helium, that in itself is pretty interesting. Okay. What's also interesting is the methodology. Rost is a waterlogged well. We always knew that. We always knew it was about taking the water off. Conventional wisdom says don't drill into the water. Go for wells that are dry of water. To look for an easy access to gas. We've defied that conventional wisdom, and if we can demonstrate to ourselves, to our investors, the Kansas community, that there is a way to seriously dewater wells. I mean, I said we're doing 50 barrels an hour. The pump could do a whole lot more than that. So we haven't hit full throttle yet. If we can find a way of demonstrating to the local, the local community, but also more importantly our investors, that this method works, and so far it couldn't have had a better start, then there's an entire region to go for. Now the region we're looking at is. This is not the Hugoton, which is obviously very well known for gas production. Where we are outside Dodge City, we're looking at something called the Morrow Sands, and there is comparable wells in Oklahoma. These are not helium wells, but there's a team over in Oklahoma who've removed large quantities of water from gas wells, and they've had an extremely successful run of building out a region of a number of gas wells where they've been able to take off water at high volume. Let's try and do the same in Kansas, but our target is helium. So naturally, we are getting a lot of interest, and this is both for technique and both for helium content. This is an area that's going to cause a bit of excitement.
Well, that's interesting, because I wonder what it actually could translate into, because you've got that option, haven't you, over this area, I think. Is that right? So you can effectively...
We've started leasing more land.
Okay.
And there's a difference in the Fort Dodge region to the Hugoton region. The Hugoton is a vast region where almost any part of it is going to be prospective for gas. The sands that we're looking to get into, this is a much narrower region. So this is not about leasing square miles of land and say, right, how many wells can we put on those square miles? It's about leasing individual areas, almost individual fields, if you like, farm fields, individual fields where we believe this Morrow sand formation is prevalent underneath. So what you're going to see from us is a larger number of leases, but of smaller areas. Now, the good news for investors is that makes it cheaper, because you pay by the acre, and rather than leasing very large quantities of land, you are leasing distinct areas. Also, the good news for us, I guess, is if we get it right and the Morrow sands are available under the fields, literally the fields that we're leasing, then we've got the ability to drill more comparator wells to Rost. And this is what it's about. You prove the concept, that's Rost, and then you develop a much larger field. And that happens over the next few months and years. It's a big area to play out.
Yeah, good. So you could be the first kind of operator in the area to sort of prove this concept, as you say, which then could make a sort of a gold rush type scenario, bringing other investment into the area, but also, if you've got interest there, actually helping to fund further wells.
And it also makes us the local experts. I mean, we're not the first people to drill for gas in the area. There are other gas wells in the area that have been plugged because they were waterlogged. And what we've demonstrated is that if you use particular technology, and in our case, an ESP pump, a pump that's actually within the well itself rather than sort of a nodding donkey on the top. If you use an ESP that can take off more water, you do enable that gas to flow. So there's other wells in the area that potentially could be reworked, as and when our technique at Rost is proven. So that makes us, the sort of, if like the mini experts in this particular area. And that itself could be interesting to third parties.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Nick. I'm sure you'll keep us updated on the progress of production at that well, and we can see how that starts to go as the gas starts to flow a bit more. But finally, just a quick word perhaps on Jasper, which was the gas that you were going to drill. I think it was only 100,000 US to actually drill that, to then start getting into Bitcoin mining. I think you were hoping for maybe 950 BTU. So I know there was a bit of an update on that. So that's been a little bit slower to get started, but it's in hand now.
Yeah, we were a bit unlucky with Jasper. We had some bad weather that held us back. If the weather is bad and you're bringing heavy equipment into a field, into a muddy field, that heavy equipment is going to get stuck. So rain can be quite a big enemy as you're getting started on these projects, and we were a tiny bit unlucky there. We were then had some further bad luck that a pump that was being used to clear out the well as it was being drilled, the pump had a fault in it. It basically had a fracture in an internal seal, so it wasn't operating properly. Where we are in Nebraska, this is not a sort of mainstream oil and gas area, so the part had to be brought in from a different state. That took a bit of time. So we had a few delays, but the good news is that's all sorted. The rain has dried up. There's a new pump in place. We are drilling. And actually, I'll just say credit to the team. The team at Jasper have worked over the weekend to try and make up for lost time. So, and also I would say that all the things that have happened on Jasper has got nothing to do with the geology. We're still just as interested in the area as we were previously. I mean, it's the nature of the business. Sometimes the weather is bad, and sometimes you have faulty equipment. But we've had a good run in the last few days, and that drilling is very much in progress. Okay.
Good, excellent. Well, it sounds like things are setting up for actually getting into cash flow and revenue before the end of the year, and indeed Bitcoin mining.
Well, we're already in revenue. We're already selling helium from wells in the Hugoton, and as Rost continues to grow, we hope over the next few days, then we'll start to be able to assess when that production actually starts. But it's as I say, it could not have gone better over the weekend.
Well, Nick Tulloch, thank you very much for your time, the CEO of Mendell Helium.
Thanks, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.